to you. And so, first of all, I want to say it's good to see everybody. I know we've got some visitors I look forward to meeting with because I have heard good things about you guys and look forward to getting a chance to meet you guys. And you know, there's just something about worshiping with family, isn't it? There's just something about it that just makes you feel good. And I know this is our spiritual family, but when you got your physical family here, it's a big deal. And so it's really neat to be able to fellowship with physical families as we're all part of the spiritual family. So if you would, turn to 1 Peter. I've always thought that when a person is teaching a lesson, if they're going to continue, the easiest way is not to go topic to topic. I know sometimes we'll probably do that at some point, but it's just easy just to turn the page. And so we're just turning the page, and we're in 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 13. Now, I know everybody wants to feel like they belong. Everybody wants to be a part of something. And there was this student, and you know, I try not to give too many details because he's one of my students at the school, and found out he's a foster child, and so learning his story, he's been bouncing around from place to place. He's looking for a place to belong. And first time I met him, it all made sense when I found that out. Because I remember talking to him, and he just rough around the edges. Just kind of, you know, like, hey man, I need you to, yeah, whatever. No, don't tell me whatever. Come back here. I need you to do this. I need you to do it now. And I'm asking politely. I've been respectful about it, but I'm serious about it. You know, and he'd fine and take, you know, the hat or bandana, whatever hat off and go on. And I just kind of noticed. But you know, it was amazing. Now, not everybody goes to a cross-country meet. And he's a cross-country kid. And I went to the cross-country meet. Oh, man. It was tough. Those guys get up early. And so I'm there at this cross-country meet, and he sees me. I'm telling you, after that, comes up to me all the time. Because he knows I didn't have to be there. It wasn't something that I would rather be doing. I'd rather be sleeping. But he's important to me. I want to make sure he knows I'm at that cross-country meet. He didn't do so well. Matter of fact, he was one of the last ones. But I stayed to the very end. And now all of a sudden, he feels like, man, me and him have connected. Well, everybody's looking for a place to connect with, a place to belong. And here in 1 Peter, as we're looking at this, we are, as we talked about last week, we're the scattered, selected sojourners. This is not home. We don't belong here. We belong elsewhere. We belong in heaven. That's the goal. That's the aim. That's what we should be aiming for. And so I had this handout that you have, and it had a lot of blanks on it. And this morning I said, you know, I can't do that to them. They're just going to be filling out blanks the whole time. So if you choose to do it, I've just got 5 points. You can take notes in between if you want. But looking at in verse 13, it says, therefore, and the therefore is talking about all the stuff we talked about last week. Those things, the reason why we have hope. Therefore, since we have this hope, prepare your minds for action. And being sober-minded, set your hope fully on the grace, notice that word again, hope, on the grace that be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. And so, this first one is the reason we should live holy. The reason we have hope and the reason we should be living holy is because His coming. He is going to be coming, and we need to prepare our minds. It says, be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. This is talking about the end. When the end comes, as it mentions in 1 Thessalonians 4, when that trumpet comes, and in 1 Thessalonians it says the call. When that call comes, we need to make sure we're living holy because of His coming. And, you know, in every race that you've ever had, you know, I know that everybody's had a race. Doesn't matter if you're in track or cross country or whatever. You've all been in a race. And so the race that I'm referring to is the playground race. You know, it's to see who's the fastest kid in school. You know, and you know, you've got everybody up there and they start measuring up. I don't know why they do it, but there's something about it. It's the tallest kid in school, the shortest kid in school, and the fastest kid in school. You know, and so the fastest kid in school, I mean, you can always see them lined up. And they're always, and one of them tries to get a jump on it, right? No, come back. And they have to come back, and they're ready to, and they take off. No, come back. This says right here, preparing your minds for action. Now, some of your versions may say, gird up your loins of your mind for action. And so what this is talking about is, back then they had flowing robes. And so they would kind of, you ladies would talk about hiking up your skirt, grabbing it and kind of holding on to it. Well, they would sit there and they'd wrap it around, they'd put it in and they'd tuck it in their belt. So then they could get a fast pace going. Well, it would be like us saying, hey, roll up your sleeves and let's get busy. That's what this is. In our mind, let's get ready. Let's start preparing our minds. So he says preparing your minds. And so if you wanted to write some things after that, it's to have a single mindset. It's to have a single mind prepared for action. So we need to, in all essence, we need to get our mind right. When I have kids in my office and they, like this last week, this kid did something. I really don't know what he was thinking, to be honest. But he just thought he'd be really funny. And the other kid in front of him didn't think it was so funny. So it caused a big ruckus in class. Well, he needed to get his mind right. So that's what I told him. I said, you need to get your mind right. You should be learning what the class is about instead of just playing and pulling tricks on your neighbors. But spiritually, we need to prepare our minds. Our mind needs to be right. We need to have that single mindset. We need to roll up our sleeves and get ready. And then it says, being sober-minded. Serious. We need to have a serious mind. And that means it's sound, it's steady, it's solid. We need to be ready. It's just like when you're on the playground and everybody's getting ready to go. We need to be set and ready. We need to be actually getting prepared to get after it. And now it's not a continual preparation like, I guess I think I'm. No, there's a point where we need to be ready. Not just getting ready, but we need to be ready spiritually. Because there will be a time when he will come. Our lives may end before or he may come. Don't know which is going to happen first. But we need to be ready. Not just always preparing, but he's telling them, hey, prepare your minds because you're not ready. We need to make sure we're a people that are ready. And then the last type of mind, he says steadfast. We need to have a steadfast because it says set your hope. It needs to be steadfast that's the hope that we have. The hope on his grace, because that's the only way we're going to make it. We can't do enough good things to get to heaven on our own. No doubt we need to show our faith by our works, as it talks about in James. But there's no way we're going to get there without his grace. So we need to have a steadfast mind, have our mind set on the hope of the grace that he will bring in the very end. And so we need to be kind of that ready, set, go mindset. So if all we're doing is getting ready, then that means we're not set. And spiritually, we need to be set. For when he says go, we are off to the races, off to heaven. So one of the things is we need to live holy because of his coming. The next thing is we need to live holy because of his character. That'd be number 2, his character. And there in verse 14, it says, as obedient children, do not conform to the passions of your former ignorance. But as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct. Since it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. It's mentioned several times in Leviticus to be holy. And that's where it's referring to when it said it's written. And so knowing this, he says, you think about his character. When I was teaching, when kids would come in, I'd always say, the first thing I would talk about, I'd say, you need to do right so you can live right so you can be right. And that would be what this is right here, being holy. This aspect of being holy it means that you are set apart, exclusively his. You're pure, you're blameless. And so we are exclusively his. Because that's who he died for. He died for us. So we have been set apart exclusively for him. Now you think about that aspect of exclusively for him set aside. Now there's certain things that I will set aside because it's exclusively mine, like the last piece of gum. It's exclusively mine. You go to anybody and you say, hey, can I have a piece of gum? It's my last one. Everybody knows it's exclusively theirs, right? Well, the same thing, we've got this hope. And the reason we have a hope is because we can live holy. It's a command, so we can do that. And to live holy means we need to be exclusively His. We don't need to be living here and living here. We don't need to be going back and forth. It says in verse 14, do not conform to the passions of your former ignorance. The way you used to live. I would call it your BC days, the before Christ days. Don't go back to that. That's not where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be in the now, the moment here, living holy for God. And so, as it goes on, there's two things here. The fact of His character. We need to live holy because of His character, because of His love. He calls us children. In Galatians chapter 3, 26 and 27, it talks about being a child of God. For all those who have faith, we've been baptized into Christ. And so we have the opportunity to be His children. Now that's amazing. So His character loves us enough to call us His children. And you think about your life before you became a Christian. And He still loved you. We talked about in class. At just the right time, He died for us, Romans chapter 5. While we were yet sinners. He loved us that much. He loved us through all the junk. Now you think about that, and you think about your kids. You guys that have grown kids, you have had plenty of opportunity to be disappointed, haven't you? I know my parents had plenty of opportunity to be disappointed in the decisions I've made. But they still love me. You still loved your kids, and you still love them now. They may be making mistakes right now at this moment, and you still love them. God has such a larger love for us. We're still His children. But we are called to do right, to be holy. And it says, here in 14, it says, don't be conformed to the passions of your former ignorance. For He who called you is holy. You also be holy. And not just part of your life, not just a certain segment, not the segment where we come together and we try to put on our Sunday best and kind of look the part. Not during that. It says in all your conduct right there. And so that means on Monday, when the boss just said something to you, that means when you and your spouse have just had some, you've had that tone with him or her, or they've had that tone with you, and your patience is just wearing thin. That's all those times. All the times when you get the bill. Are you kidding me? Why are we leaving the refrigerator open? Whatever it is. Leaving electricity. The electricity bill is horrendous. Whatever it is. Whatever it is, the things that take place. Or maybe it's the bad news that we've heard. And we've heard some bad news of somebody that we love, somebody in our family. Just one more thing that's taken place. And we're our breaking end. And but it says in all our conduct, be holy. You can still question. You can still be upset. You can still be angry. But it says be holy. Because we're exclusively His. And the holy aspect, not just His character, the love, but also the challenge there, under that point, is the likeness. Just as He is holy. So we've got our work cut out for us, don't we? It talks about in 1 John chapter 2, verse 6, to walk as He did. So walk as Jesus did, and we've got our work cut out for us. Because He knows what it's like. He was tempted, remember, in every aspect. Just as we are, yet without sin, is what it talks about in Hebrews chapter 4 and 15. So knowing that, we've got our work cut out. Be holy as He is holy. It talks about in Romans chapter 8, verse 29, we're to be conformed to His likeness. Once again, being like Jesus. So, His character, being like Him, sharing that same type of love. And the next point, verse 17, it says, and if you call Him as Father, who judges impartially according to each one's deeds, conduct yourself with fear throughout the time of your exile. Now, there's several points I want to make here. One of the things it says, in 3, the third point is his children. Be holy because we're his children. And that's amazing. That's us. His children, because we can call him Father. That means we're his children. That is an amazing statement. Because this period in time, they didn't pray Father. They had a priest that intervened, and they went through a priest. And now we've got Jesus. The veil is split. As Matthew talks about, when Jesus died, the veil in the temple on the Holy of Holies split from the top all the way to the bottom, and now nothing separates us. We can go before the throne. That's an amazing thing. We've got a Father. They said it was blasphemy back there in his day when Jesus said, I go to my Father. Oh, how dare he? But that's what we get to call him. Now, I know that there's some of us who haven't had the greatest of fathers. But we've got one who is an amazing Father. So we can be holy because his judgment. He's got a family judgment going on. And he's in charge. And that's what we need to know about that point under children, is the fact that it's a family judgment. It's all about family. And it's not one of those things that it's set up on a hierarchy. And it's not one of those things where the kids are in charge. It's not us being in charge of God saying, oh, no. No, you need to do this. Because I've seen plenty of that. I come into my office and I have a parent coming in and I'm seeing what's going on, and all of a sudden I'm seeing that kid start talking to that mom in such a disrespectful manner. And I'm thinking, I don't believe oh my goodness. Okay, so now I get it. The punishment that I dealt out, the consequences, I should say, it's a little bit nicer terms. The consequences I dealt out, the kid didn't like. So the kid says, Mom, you need to come up to the school because I don't like this. That's what's going on. So the kid's in charge. Here, kid's not in charge. The Father's in charge. Where it belongs. God is in charge. And so we know it's not up to us to say, I don't like what he or she's doing. I think we're going to do something here. No, it's the Father making the judgment call. It's up to us to work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. And so there is a judgment by the Father. And it's impartial. And I like that too. It's impartial. It doesn't, you talk about a small community, so it doesn't matter what name you've got. Well, he's got a big name in the community, so we probably ought to let him get, have an opportunity, that we don't give other people. Nope. It doesn't matter the kind of bank account you got. It doesn't matter the position, the status, none of that. It's impartial. And so it goes off of individual. So am I living holy? Am I living pure and separated and blameless? Or am I living here in the world, and then at different times I try to start getting right? You can't go both ways. You can't dabble back and forth. And then the last point under children is a fearful judgment. That means we need to conduct ourselves with fear. In other words, respect the position our God is in, our Father. And it says, while you're in exile, or while you're scattered, while you're a sojourner. So this right here, we need to remember, this isn't home. And we get really comfortable with our home. Some of us more so than others. I still haven't got it comfortable. I'm still not completely in mine. But the whole thing is, we kind of get comfortable with what's ours and our possessions. We get comfortable with the things that we have, the people that are around us, our activities. We get comfortable with that. And no, we need to realize this isn't home. And we need to remember, if we can recognize it, we need to remember this isn't home. This is just a temporary place for the permanent place. And so if that's the case, we need to be holy. Be holy because his coming. Be holy because of his character. Be holy because we're his children. And be holy, number 4, because of the cross. His cross. Look in verse 18. It says, knowing that you were ransomed from the futile ways inherited from your forefathers, not with perishable things such as silver and gold, but with the precious blood of Christ, like that of a lamb without spot or blemish. He was foreknown before the foundation of the world, but has made manifest in the last times for the sake of you. Now that is amazing things, because you see the cross. We should be holy because of the cross, because of the sacrifice he made. And the point's here that it's because of his power and because of the price. The power is the fact that he ransomed us. He took us back. We were held captive by our own desires, and he pulls us back in, and he did it because of Christ. The price was the blood. And we need to remember from that where we came from, because it talks about there, it says you were ransomed from the futile ways inherited from your forefathers. So he's writing mainly to Greeks, and he's talking about, the past, that those things they did. You're not supposed to live like that anymore. There are certain things that I would imagine that you have as habits that you have, and people, because of your habits, if they knew your parents, they say, yep, I know how I got that habit. I know how she got that habit. I mean, look at our parents. Look at his parents. Think it's a carbon copy. For example, I am not going to call anybody out but Charlotte. If I see Ashley, I'm like, oh my goodness, that is little Charlotte. And if I see Lance, I'm like, there's little Ronnie. Not carbon copies, but they resemble a lot of the same mannerisms. But in an unspiritual way, now I'm talking about the fact that we shouldn't resemble the habits in our life that aren't good. There's going to be certain things that man, that's my mom and dad all over. But there's certain aspects, when I'm talking about the spiritual things, that right there, don't go back to those things. That's that's dead thinking. Remember where you came from and don't go backward. And that's when we're talking about Sunday morning in class. Don't go back to that. Remember where you came from. Because hopefully that keeps you humble and that keeps you away from that. You don't need to all of a sudden, as life gets old, you start kind of, I'm going to go backwards. You're supposed to continue going forward. And so looking at this, his cross, it's the power, it's the price. We need to be holy because of the cross. He gave it all. So why can't we give it all? If we're so consumed about this world, that means we haven't given up, and that means that we're not really in exile here. We're not really sojourners here. We're at home. And if this is home, then it's going to be a sad end when all these things burn up. Because that's what happens. It talks about it. Peter writes about it. And say all these things just burn up anyway. And the last point is we need to be holy because of his certainty. He's got a plan. And the best part about it is just like that kid, wanting and needing a place to belong. We've got that place. We belong. He wants us. And that's amazing because he has set this whole thing up. He wants us. It says in verse 20, before the foundation of the world, he's made manifest in last times for your sake. Then he goes on, verse 21. Who through him are believers in God, who raised him from the dead and gave him glory, so that your faith and hope, there it is again, hope, are in God, where it belongs. Having purified your souls by your obedience in the truth for a sincere brotherly love, love one another earnestly from a pure heart, since you have been born again, not of perishable seed, but imperishable, through the living and abiding word of God. And then it talks about, and it says, all flesh is like grass, and all its glory like the flower of the grass. The grass withers and the flower falls, but the word of the Lord remains forever. And this word is the good news that was preached to you. His certainty. He wants you, that's why it was preached to you. He wants you to be with him. And so his certainty, one of the things we need to be holy is because of his certainty. He has cleansed us. We are to be pure. We are to be obedient. And that would go into our conduct. It should be a conduct that's solid, that's steady. It's all about Jesus. When you look at the fact that he's talking about cleansed in your conduct, and then he says he wants you to love each other. It says it from a sincere heart. So it means that we're supposed to love each other, because it's talking about the body of believers, 1 Peter's talking about, the scattered, selected sojourners. He's saying you need to love each other. It needs to be real. It doesn't need to be fake. It doesn't need to be fake at all. It's not one of those things where you walk up and you just, hey, good to see you, and then you leave and you forget about them. It needs to be genuine. And when people come, they know if it's genuine or not. When people spend time with you. And then he says we're born again. That's another reason we need to live holy. We're conceived, we're born again. And the most amazing thing is it's of an imperishable seed. It's changeless. Believe it, then it means you need to obey it. You need to live it. You're not supposed to be talking about it, you're supposed to be about it. And so here, we've got the word that stands forever, and we're born. And that birth, it's not of an imperishable seed. I mean, it's not a perishable, but it's imperishable. It doesn't change. So that means when you're born again, that means you have the opportunity to live with Him forever. But only if you're living holy. And that's real living. Real living is living in hope and living in holiness. And so I challenge you to look in your mind. Is your mind prepared for action? Is your life obedient to the Father? Are you living a life of holiness? Or are you living a life like everybody else that has no hope? We've got hope in spades. But if there's something that you need for us to know about so we can be praying specifically about it, let us know. If you haven't put Christ on baptism, be born again. Let us know what we can do. Let us study first so you're not getting wet. Let's study and see what's taking place when you are baptized. Repentance, all those things. But whatever it is, make a spiritual inventory to get your mind right, to start living holy for Him who is holy. Whatever your need, please come while we stand and sing.